It comes to a brutal end after a violent life. It's being called a tragedy by some, justice by others.
25-year-old Christopher J. Scarver of Milwaukee is in custody tonight for the alleged murder of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer and attempted murder of convicted killer Jesse Anderson. Adam Schrager has the latest.
To many, Jeffrey Dahmer is the worst killer in history. But to officials at the Columbia County Corrections Facility, Dahmer was just another inmate. 3 weeks after having been approved for janitorial work in the gymnasium, Dahmer's body was found in the staff bathroom. Jesse Anderson's in the prisoner's bathroom just after 8 this morning.
It's just starting to set in now. I didn't realize it was him until after he was unloaded at the hospital. It was the first I realized who it was.
My opinion, anytime anyone is murdered, wherever that occurs, it's a tragedy.
At the Department of Corrections headquarters in Madison, the murder is not being cheered, it's being analyzed.
Staff are far outnumbered by inmates. And that means that we cannot guarantee anyone's absolute safety 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Sullivan says the suspect in custody is a convicted murderer from Milwaukee County. And the inmate helping Dahmer and Anderson clean the gym this morning. Blood was found on his clothing and a bloody broom handle at the scene.
Both patients, Jeffrey being the first, they both had trauma to the face. It looked like it was a lot of blood.
Anderson is at the UW hospital in critical condition. Dahmer's remains arrived later on in the day for an autopsy, but the major remaining mystery for authorities is a motive. In Madison, Adam Schrager, 15 News at 10.
The suspect, Christopher Scarver, was convicted of murder himself in 1992. He is eligible for parole in 2042. The Department of Corrections is establishing a special 5-member panel to investigate the crimes.
Some family members of Dahmer's victims are relieved at his death. Dahmer killed 16 young men in Milwaukee, and that left several family members very bitter. Some were relishing the news of his death.
Decision to be made by you.
I feel that justice was done, because he's dead, but I don't feel sorry because he's dead.
And if this was one person's means of acting out the death penalty, it's wrong. We don't have an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth here.
Stephen Eisenberg, Dahmer's civil attorney, who says he doesn't expect people to mourn Dahmer's death. He says that, but not just to justify the murder because of his background. Dahmer's trial attorney says the mass murderer had a death wish. Gerald Boyle expected Dahmer, he says, to die at the hands of someone else. Can a serial killer ever be forgiven of his sins?
The Madison minister who baptized Dahmer in prison last May believes Dahmer is with God in heaven. Wendy Teese talked with a reverend who became friends with one of the most famous serial killers of our time.
The last 6 months of Jeffrey Dahmer's life were spent in reflection, studying the Bible.
I considered him a personal friend. I have a sense right now of the loss, a sense of hurt.
Reverend Roy Ratcliffe of Madison's Church of Christ baptized Dahmer on May 10th of this year and studied the Bible with him once a week in prison. He says Dahmer felt sorry for the pain he caused.
Well, I know he had a sense of guilt. He had confessed that to me on a number of occasions, that he felt very guilty for his crimes. And it even confided that he felt that he deserved to be put to death and wondered and asked me, am I sinning against God by continuing to live?
So the minister and Dahmer looked to the Bible for answers, and he decided to live the rest of his days behind bars, becoming a better Christian. Reverend Ratcliffe helped Dahmer regardless of the crimes he committed, because he thought, where do you draw the line of who's too evil to go to heaven?
I think he's in the hands of the most loving, compassionate, caring individual that he's ever known.
Dahmer told Reverend Ratcliffe he had no reason to fear for his life while in prison.
When we went to baptize him, we walked past a few of the other prisoners, and they called out to him, "Hey, J.D., how's it going?" Which apparently was their pet name for him. "It's going great." So I had the impression that he got along very well with them.
The last time Reverend Ratcliffe talked with Dahmer was the day before Thanksgiving. But today, he believes Dahmer's in the hands of a fair and loving God. Wendy Teese, 15 News at 10.
Pastor Ratcliffe says Dahmer hoped his remains would be studied by scientists after his death. No word yet on plans for a funeral.
In other news tonight, a 53-year-old Oshkosh man is now officially charged with abducting, sexually assaulting, and killing 12-year-old Cora Jones. In a criminal complaint filed in Langlade County, David Spanbauer is charged with first-degree intentional homicide, sexual assault of a minor, and false imprisonment. Cora Jones' body was found in Langlade County a few days after she disappeared riding her bike near her grandmother's in rural Waupaca County. Women in Monona may have reason to feel a little more relieved tonight. 36-year-old Orny Metz has been formally charged with raping one woman and is suspected of raping another. Metz allegedly broke into a Monona woman's home and raped her twice at knife point. That's why Metz is charged with 2 counts of first-degree sexual assault. He is a suspect in another rape in the same neighborhood.
Philadelphia's mayor says the city will fire 3 911 operators for the way they treated callers the night a teenager was killed. 16-year-old Eddie Polak was attacked on the steps of a church 3 weeks ago by a bat-wielding mob. Operators taking a series of 911 calls about the incident waited 40 minutes before sending police. President Clinton's top advisors hope to get Bosnian Serbs back to the peace table. Policymakers say a negotiated settlement is the only hope for ending the war in Bosnia. Meanwhile, the U.S. says it's ready to help UN peacekeepers get out of Bosnia. Defense Secretary William Perry says the U.S. will consider requests from other countries to help evacuate their UN troops. The peacekeepers haven't been able to stop a Serb offensive in northwest Bosnia.
Financial security is plenty hard to find while you're working.
Silicon making your money work for you after retirement.
With our temperature and the wind chill has been down near 0 at times today. I think the wind will finally diminish by tomorrow, and I'll tell you about the rest of the forecast in just a few minutes.
Everyone dreams of retirement, but few Americans have the money to live their golden years to the fullest.
One reason we don't save enough now to pay for later, well, in reality, the fear of saving might be harder to handle than actually doing it. Tonight, Tony Thomas begins our Check Your Figures series by taking a look at planning for retirement.
Doug Myers, a fairly typical Madison resident. He's employed, a homeowner, even has a dog. But he's also different. At 29, he's already saving for his retirement.
I looked at the financial consultant and said, that's impossible.
It wasn't an easy start.
There's no way I can do without this or this or that.
After 4 years, Doug's now well on his way, putting aside a nice little chunk of his paycheck each month. But he's still not up to the recommended 15%.
I think I'm pretty close. The part that makes it easier for me is that a lot of it is automatically deducted either out of my check before I even get it, or it's taken automatically from my bank account.
If only we were also disciplined. As a whole, Americans are miserable savers, and we're getting worse. In 1950, the national savings rate was 12.3%. Last year, Americans saved only 2.7%, the lowest of any industrialized nation. And in the 80s, while Americans were spending, Europeans saved more than 11%, the Japanese 16%.
It's very easy to get credit in the United States, so using credit cards or buying from catalogs. We redistribute resources very much from younger households to older households, and older households tend to spend a greater fraction of their income.
Savings is a habit.
Financial advisor Todd Branson says half the battle is just getting started.
If you can get started early on, even if it's $25 a month, it gets you in the habit of saving a little bit.
Especially during this time of the year when we're likely spending more than we're taking in, it can be hard to start saving. But the experts say that's the golden rule. Before you buy that Christmas gift, pay the rent, or get groceries, pay yourself first.
People that are successful financially make savings a priority and do pay themselves first.
In retirement, you'll need it. If you're 25 and just starting to save, you'll need $1.3 million plus Social Security to retire on $24,000 a year in today's dollars when you reach 65. That means saving $221 each month and getting 10% return on your dollar. If you're 35, you'll need nearly $800,000 for the same $2,000 a month retirement. Start socking away $354 each month. And if you're 40, you need $764,000 in 25 years, or $580 a month.
The single most important reason people will become financially successful is they simply discipline themselves to save an awful lot of money.
Easier said than done. In Madison, Tony Thomas, 15 News at 10.
Tomorrow night, we'll take another sobering look at the first steps you need to take to build a financially secure retirement.
The future of U.S. workers is being debated by both Republicans and Democrats tonight, who are working for last-minute support of a World Trade Treaty. Supporters predict a victory, but also hope for a large margin to lay the groundwork for the Senate, where the measure faces a tougher fight. Some Democrats say the House vote will send the message of bipartisan support for the treaty to the Senate. Others say gap may lead to lower prices for U.S. goods and lower wages for American workers. If you're looking for employment in the Midwest, you may have an easy job of it. A new survey says hiring projections for the first 3 months of the new year are the highest they've been in 5 years. The temporary employment firm says most available jobs will be in manufacturing. That is Manpower that did that survey. Sheboygan has the strongest outlook in Wisconsin. 53% of employers surveyed there say they plan to add workers.
And on Wall Street, blue chip stocks extended a rebound that began during Friday's holiday shortened session. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up 31.29 to close at 3739.56. General Motors is recalling more than 400,000 Cadillacs. The recall involves 1991 through 93 model Cadillac DeVilles with 4.9-liter engines. The company fears a potential fire risk. GM plans to replace a defective rubber oil hose that could separate from a connector and spill transaxle oil in the engine compartment. If you are affected, you should receive a recall notice in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
The tobacco industry takes another blow.
Just ahead, R.J. Reynolds may go to court over their camel.
The football Badgers hand out the team awards today at their banquet, and they also find out who they'll play in the Hall of Fame Bowl. We'll tell you all about it in just a few minutes.
I guess it's official. It's going to be nice enough Friday to play, right?
Mitch and I are making our plans.
Yeah. It's going to be in the mid-40s.
We better keep it kind of secret.
We've got to get through tonight.
I think we're a little bit off.
Yeah.
But we finally had our first snowfall, even though it's a trace. We have had our first snowfall here on November the 28th. And in case you're keeping track of it, we'll talk about the snow contest in a minute. We're still at 30 degrees and still some flurries. In fact, we've had enough to make driving kind of treacherous out there. If you've been out, you know that already. West wind at 18 gives us a wind chill of about 6 right now. Barometer continuing to rise at 29.70. Through the afternoon, these are the readings we had, not necessarily the highs for the day, because that was probably back around midnight. I have the different colors, 1 to 3 inches of snow through the central part, 6 to 8 inches around from Eau Claire, all the way to Iron Mountain. Then the extreme northwest, 10 to 13 inches of snow. In fact, Duluth had 13.5 inches of snow yesterday. We've had a little bit of snow tonight. You'll notice the radar is very skimpy, but I wanted to show it to you, show you that we did have a little bit of activity around here. It's so hard to pick up on that big of a radar screen, but I'll show it to you one more time. And, of course, most of it has been way up to the north. In fact, in the UP, they've had as much as 16 inches of snow up around Houghton, Michigan. So there's been quite a bit of snow there. You can see the satellite. Of course, that big comma shape that moved up through our section yesterday is continuing to move on up toward James Bay. And, of course, the backflow from this is what we're getting now. And those winds have been so strong today, gusting to near 40 miles an hour. But the wind should finally let up tonight as this system loses its grip on us. And not that it's going to get all that much warmer, but it will be a little less windy. But tonight we still have the winds blowing snow back through the plains. And speaking of heavy snow, they've had over 33 inches of snow in Salt Lake City this month. And at Alta, Utah, they've had about 180 inches. So they are well stocked with snow in Utah. And it's still warm in one spot of the country, and that's down in southern Florida, where they were in the 80s this afternoon. Tomorrow, not quite as windy. It's still going to be cold for us. Maybe even a few flurries, but I still don't think we'll have to do any shoveling of our snow around here for a while. Tonight, we're looking for still cloudy conditions and cold. Scattered snow flurries, we still have those out there. Winds should be diminishing some, overnight low of about 25. Then tomorrow, not quite as windy, northwest 10 to 15. Tomorrow's high around 34, which is still pretty cold. Tomorrow night dropping to around 19, but it should be dry at least. And then actually the rest of this week looks like it should be dry. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And as Mitch and I were talking, it looks like Friday might be that golf day. We'll work on that. Let's do the snow thing right quick now. This is the last week for you to listen up now. You have to get your total in by December the 3rd, which is, of course, the end of the week. So you guess the total snow we will have through December the 10th, and if you're the closest, you'll win the Aaron Snowblower or the weekend getaway at the Oshkosh Hilton Inn. And, of course, what you do is put your name and your guess, and your address, of course, too, on a postcard. Send it to the Anderson Thomas Company, 2100 Winnebago Street, Madison, 53704. Only one per household, and you must have it in by the 3rd.
All right, then.
Boy, kids to go low or high.
But you're off the hook. We did have a little snow.
We had a little snow, yeah.
Very good.
A little dusting, we said.
Yeah.
The holidays have definitely arrived.
A little later, the First Lady tops off the season. It looks like Joe Camel will have to defend himself in court after all.
The U.S. Supreme Court today refused to kill a California lawsuit that says the cartoon character lures children into smoking. The tobacco giant R.J. Reynolds was sued in 1992 by a San Francisco lawyer who argues Joe Camel is as familiar to children as Mickey Mouse.
The suit claims the company's use of Joe Camel violates a California law barring unfair business practices. Reynolds denies it is targeting children. Meanwhile, Reynolds officials say they're not ready to introduce a lower smoke cigarette. The Eclipse looks normal, but burns only a purified piece of carbon at the tip, not tobacco. Reynolds says it doesn't meet company standards because it doesn't taste good enough.
We are a long way from bringing the cigarette to market. We are testing various prototypes with smokers, asking them whether they like the taste, whether they like the way the cigarette performs. But until we get that right, we will not move forward.
No word when the cigarette may hit the market.
A relatively risk-free condition that's often mistaken for asthma is our vital signs topic tonight. People who suffer from vocal cord dysfunction say it feels like they have a lump in their throat and can't get their breath, while asthma patients have trouble breathing from a tightness or blockage in the chest. Vocal cord dysfunction has nothing to do with your lungs.
The opening of the airway at the vocal cords will be very small, possibly an opening as small as a straw.
For treatment, doctors simply teach patients how to relax their throat to breathe, much like a professional singer. Doctors say the biggest danger is misdiagnosis and unnecessary prescriptions.
Still ahead in sports, the football Badgers cash in on the all-conference team.
Plus, they finally know who their opponent will be on January 2nd.
Big night for one Madison native tonight and his family.
Yes, it is. Football sweepstakes continue around here.
Nice to see the locals succeed, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Madison native Rick Neuheisel receives an early Christmas present tonight. He's been named the new head football coach at Colorado, replacing Bill McCartney. It was 9 months ago today that Neuheisel came to the Buffaloes program from UCLA. He was the quarterbacks and receivers coach at both schools. Now the 33-year-old is set to be a head coach for the first time.
This is a dream come true. I've had a lot of great inspirational guys that have been in my life that have taught me a great deal, not only about football, but about life.
Neuheisel had a storybook career in college football. He walked on at UCLA and eventually won the starting job at quarterback, but he hasn't forgotten his roots.
I want to say thank you to my parents, because my parents taught me how to dream. It taught me how to dream with my feet on the ground. And what I mean by that is have an idea where you want to go, but then have a plan of how to get there.
Congratulations to Rick tonight. One coach is hired and another one quits. Bill Walsh has called it quits at Stanford. Walsh turned 63 on Wednesday. He guided the Cardinal to 3 bowl victories in his first 3 seasons, but the program has slipped below 500 the last couple of years. The waiting game is finally over. The football Badgers will play Duke in the Hall of Fame Bowl January 2nd. Let's get to know the Blue Devils just a little bit. They had what's been called a Cinderella season, going 8-3, but they won their first 7 games. Duke finished in a 3-way tie for 3rd place in the ACC and is ranked 25th in the AP poll and 20th in the coaches poll.
and I've heard a few things about them. I know that they were pulling off great upsets at the beginning of the year. It's a big test for us, and it's a great opportunity. So I'm kind of excited to go in and see what we can do.
The Bull-bound Badgers had their team banquet tonight. Fletcher was named the most valuable player. He set season and career records for all-purpose yardage.
Well, it's a tremendous honor. I feel like I'm in great company, and it's just something that you kind of put a feather in your hat. It's a tremendous accomplishment for myself and for the whole squad as well.
Sharp-looking coat and tie by Fletch tonight. Big Ten All-Conference teams were released today. 5 Badgers make the first team, including Corey Raymer, Mike Verstegen, and Joe Rudolph on the offensive line, plus Jeff Messenger and Mike Thompson on defense. At 6-6, the Packers have nowhere to go but up as they fight for a postseason berth. Amazingly enough, the team is very much in the hunt, but still trail the surprising Bears and Vikings in the division.
We're all disappointed in our record at this point, but what it's come down